In this lesson, we will learn how to run Maya commands in Python. In order for Maya commands to be recognized in Python, we need to tell the Python interpreter that we would like to use these commands. So this involves us having to import in our Maya command module. Now, module is simply a collection of code that Python can run. So what we'll do is go ahead and take a look at how we can use this module then to start working with mel commands using Python. Let's head over to our script editor. We'll right click and we'll choose clear all so we can work with a clean slate. We'll bring up our divider here so we have more space to type. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Remember, to do so, we'd simply hold down Control and scroll forward with our middle mouse button. So what we basically need to do here is go ahead and type in import space maya.cmds. Once we run this, let's go ahead and highlight this and press enter on our number pad. So once we have run this, we are now telling Python that we would like to use Maya commands. Now let me go ahead and show you something. Let's say if we wanted to use a really basic command, let's say the command to make a polygonal sphere. What I'll do is go ahead and hit enter on the keyboard to go to the next line, and I'll type in the mel command for a polygonal sphere. So it's going to be lowercase p for poly, capital S for sphere, and then a semicolon to let Maya know that this is the end of this line of code. Now, even though we've imported in our Maya commands, if we were to try to run this command here, you'll notice that there's going to be a warning because this is not in a syntax that Python understands. So we need to kind of change things up just slightly. Just before polysphere, let's go ahead and type in maya.cmds. So this is basically what would need to come before any command that we'd like to run with Python. We also would get rid of the semicolon. It's not needed. Let's go ahead and try to run this line again. You'll notice that Python now recognizes this command, but nothing has been built just yet. Simply because we need to finish this function. In order to do so, we'd simply add an open and close parentheses right after our command. Later, we'll learn how we can change certain options or settings on the command that we're trying to run right here inside of our parentheses. So this is going to be covered in the next lesson. But let's say we go ahead and finally build this sphere. So we'll highlight the second line and we'll hit enter, and you'll notice that the sphere has now been made. Great, let's go ahead and take a look at what we've done in Maya. So we have a basic sphere. We can get to its history. If we were to take a look at its inputs, these are the options that we can change and that we can specify right here in our parentheses that we'll take a look at in the next lesson. So really neat stuff, how much control we have. But we've learned how to run a command that uses mel, but instead of using mel, we've simply used Python to execute this command. I'd like to show you also that you can condense this even further, because you may not want to keep typing in maya.cmds and then the command. Again, we need to find ways to kind of optimize our code just so we can build our code a bit faster. So here's what we would do. We'd go to our first line here, where we see maya.cmds, and let's go ahead and type in as, and then following that, we can use whatever function we'd like here. We can go ahead and define a type of variable for the function that we would like to use. So instead of this long name here, we can go ahead and condense this to anything we like. We could call it cheese if we want to. Let's go ahead and test this out. So now instead of maya.cmds, we'll go ahead and get rid of that and we'll type in cheese. Just testing it out here. So let's go back to our first line and we'll hit enter. Take a look. Now, when we go ahead and try to run the command on our second line and create another polygonal sphere, you can see another polysphere has been made. Alright, sweet. Now, you probably wouldn't want to use cheese, of course, because that's a bit ridiculous. But what we could always do is abbreviate my commands. We can go with, let's say, MC. So let's go ahead and switch cheese to MC. And now if we were to go ahead and run the first line, just to let the system know that we'd like to use this new function, now when we go ahead and create another polygonal sphere, everything works just fine. Alright, super cool. Now, what if we wanted to rename one of these spheres? Let's say the last sphere that we've made. Well, let's go ahead and work with the rename command. So what we'll do is go to our next line. Let's go to line 2 and hit enter on our keypad. And we'll type in as follows. That would be mc.rename, then an open and close parentheses. Now, if you're familiar with the rename command in Mel, it kind of works the same way. We first need to identify the object that we would like to rename, and then we give it a new name. So let's put an open and close quotation mark. Within, we'll put in the name of the object we'd like to rename. So we're just working with the last sphere we made. We could always go ahead and grab that from the channel box, or we can go to our outliner. Just go ahead and double click to copy the name with Control C. Now we can head back over to our script editor, paste. Now we have the name that we would like to change. So after our quotation mark, we'll put a comma, space, and then we'll put 2 more quotation marks, and within the name we'd like to change it to. So we could always call this, let's say, cool sphere. And now, when we go ahead and run this third line, you'll notice that the name has been changed. How cool is that? So that's basically how we can run Mel commands with Python. We're going to take a look at more complex examples as we progress, but as of right now, we should be comfortable enough to create an object and now rename that object or any object that we add to our scene by using these really basic commands. Alright, now I'd like to point out before we close off this lesson that anytime you restart Maya, you always want to make sure you import in your command module. But once you've done that, you can go ahead and start to work with your new function however you'd like. So if you notice that your script isn't working, well, make sure that you have included this first line so that the system recognizes it. Alright, well, in the next lesson, we're going to learn how to specify flag values in Python.